Hello, college football fans, and welcome into Mark Rogers TV, the place to be for the best and most insightful discussion of college football on the entire internet. I'm Mike Lovell from lastwordoncollegefootball.com. I'm just going to sit in for Mark Rogers tonight. Joining us this evening is Charlie Burris, owner of the Orange and White Report and co-host of the Swain Event podcast. Charlie, welcome back to Mark Rogers TV.
Thanks for having me on. I'm excited. Little change of scenery here, having it not be Mark, but yeah, I'm excited to be here with you. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, no problem. Always enjoy having Knoxville guys in to talk some Tennessee football. Charlie, first things first. After a disappointing 2018 recruiting class where Tennessee finished 20th in the 247 composite rankings, Coach Jeremy Pruitt is building some momentum on the recruiting trail. Since May 1st, he's landed three big-time commitments, one from Wanya Morris, one from Ramel Keaton, and one from Lakia Henry. What, if anything, does Pruitt's recent success on the recruiting trail mean for the Tennessee program and Pruitt himself?
I think it's huge, and honestly, it's not surprising. I would say so. I'm definitely impressed. But in some ways, Tennessee recruits itself. I mean, Butch Jones got plenty of great guys to come to Tennessee. But I would say it's a great place to start because Pruitt came in with this reputation. At one point, I think he was named Recruiter of the Year in NCAA football by 24/7, maybe a few years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. So he has this reputation to be this phenomenal recruiter. So like I said, it's not necessarily surprising, but it's absolutely an excellent start. It's exactly what you want to see out of Jeremy Pruitt at this point because, as of right now, he can't produce any wins on the football field. So recruiting is what you want to see. And I mean, he has it set up so far to where some dominoes should start falling. If it works like you see recruiting classes work a lot of the time, specifically with Wanya Morris out of Georgia. I mean, he's a 5-star out of Georgia, out of Georgia's backyard. They kind of stolen from Kirby Smart somehow. And that's the kind of guy that you can really show to another recruit and say, hey, we got this guy. We're starting with an excellent foundation. And, you can come in here, play with him, and we're going to be going places. And that's huge. It's absolutely huge. And Tennessee needs every single positive thing they can get right now. And this is definitely one of those things.
Yeah, you talked about Wanya Morris right there in Logan'sville, Georgia, building inroads, kind of reference that. Owen Popo was a classmate of his going to Auburn. You talk about Ramel Keaton. The thing about Ramel Keaton is he's got 4 classmates in the 2020 class from Marietta High School in the top 100 247. How important is it for Jeremy Pruitt? Multifaceted question here. How important is it for him to win the state of Tennessee? How important is it for him to build inroads in the Atlanta metro area and in the larger state of Georgia?
I mean, I don't think that you can say enough about how important that is. It's everything. Obviously, you got to start in state if you're Jeremy Pruitt, specifically for the 2020 class. 2020 class coming out of Tennessee is huge. This year is a little underwhelming, or at least not as good as it's been in some years past. But still fairly good. I don't see them taking a lot of kids out of Tennessee this year, but for years to come, I mean, you have to set that precedent and say, we own this state. Don't let these guys go anywhere else. That's of utmost importance. But yeah, in terms of getting some claws into Georgia, that's absolutely massive. I mean, Georgia just pumps out incredible talent every single year. And if you can extend it from there into Alabama and Florida and Tennessee ideally should be able to recruit nationally with the resources that they have. But yeah, like I said, I mean, you can't say enough how important that factor really is to recruiting and building what Jeremy Pruitt wants to recruit here. It all starts there. Jeremy Pruitt realizes that I'm not sure the man sleeps. I think he's a cyborg. I don't know. He just, all he does is eat, drink, sleep, live football in every single way. And specifically as of right now, he's living recruiting. And so I think he understands that, and I think he's making it a big priority right now. And I love seeing a guy who's just so stern and so serious and very no nonsense about these things, especially after the last guy. it's pretty refreshing. So yeah, it's extremely important, and I think they're making good strides to getting there.
We'll get to the last guy in a moment, Charlie. But last thing on the recruiting, we've been talking high school kids with Wanya Morris and Ramel Keaton. What about the impact of transfers coming in Tennessee? Tennessee, other than the Alvin Kamara, really doesn't have a history of bringing in some top flight graduate transfers. I kind of, when I talked to Mark, I talked to him about the era of college football free agency. How are the impacted transfers? Keller Chris, Madre London, possibly Josh Belk, and of course the center from Alabama, Kennedy, whose transfer is being blocked right now. What kind of impact are the transfers going to have for Tennessee? Is it going to be an immediate impact, or is he bringing these guys in just for depth?
Ideally, it's going to be a big impact year one because, like you said, Keller Chris, if he ends up being the starting quarterback, I mean, obviously that's giant for the team. And I genuinely don't – it's almost impossible to say at this point. Jarek Guarantano looked better during spring practice than he looked during the season. But who's to say Keller Chris isn't going to come in, just swoop in and get the job? So that could be giant right off the top. And then you have a tight end in the kid's name is escaping me. Dominic Wood Anderson. Yeah, I'm looking at here. Dominic Wood Anderson, who's a transfer tight end from Arizona Western, same place that why am I forgetting these names? The tight end or the defensive end.
Jonathan Kongbo.
Jeez. Not like I cover the team every day and talk about it for 3 hours a day or anything. I think it could be absolutely immediate with guys like that. And some of these transfers, like a Brandon Kennedy, would be so huge for Tennessee because they just are hurting so bad on the offensive line specifically. And if you know much about the strategy of football, I mean, the offensive line is just a cornerstone of any good team. You have to have a good offensive line to have a good football team, period. I mean, you got to protect that quarterback. You got to be able to create holes for your running back. And Tennessee just frankly doesn't have that right now. Trey Smith's health condition is kind of up in the air. They need every single ounce of help that they can get at that position. And somebody like Brandon Kennedy would be giant for that. Obviously, Nick Saban is being I don't know what you would say, a little bit of a butt when it comes to that without getting explicit, not being kind to Brandon Kennedy and not allowing him to transfer to either. And it's not a sure thing he'd come to Tennessee anyway. He's also considering Auburn. But yeah, I think he could be absolutely huge. And you said Madre London too from Michigan State. Hey, he could be really, really big. Tennessee, as of right now, really only have their clear number one in Ty Chandler. And then it's just kind of up in the air. Madre London could be that piece that the offense really needs to kind of take it to the next level. And so I think for sure that's going to be a really big factor this coming year with the grad transfers.
Yeah, I think you hit on it. One of the impressive things for me looking at Jeremy Pruitt is he's done a good job with the high school kids. He's also brought in some JUCO impact and the graduate transfer. So he's kind of bringing in needed depth and needed talent from all the sources of recruiting. And, you talked about the offensive line last year. Tennessee had a bad snap in every single game they played. And I think, for me, the center position was the single biggest point of emphasis going into this offseason for Jeremy Pruitt and his staff. Development at the center position and consistency at quarterback. I think you talked about that. Hey, viewers, don't forget to subscribe to Mark Rodgers TV YouTube channel. You can get notified whenever Mark goes live with one of our guests from around the nation. The best and most insightful discussion is right here. We bring in guys like Charlie Burris, guys and gals like Charlie Burris from across the country to give you a deep insight into these particular teams, in this case, Tennessee. All right, Charlie, recruiting success at Tennessee is nothing new. You talked about the old guy. Butch Jones was known as a tremendous recruiter. What does Jeremy Pruitt and his staff have to do different than what Butch Jones did to translate this recruiting success into wins and wins on the field and to contend for either a division or conference championship?
It's development. That is the bottom line at this point, because, like I said, Tennessee to a certain extent recruits itself. You're going to get pretty good players. It's great if you can get the 5 stars instead of the 4s, but more than likely you're going to get 3 and 4 star guys no matter what you do. And it's just all about the development. So what Butch Jones could never nail down for some reason. I mean, he was just a self-saboteur. And whatever he did, I wasn't there every single day behind closed doors looking at it, but whatever he did didn't work. And Jeremy Pruitt, that's really been his thing at everywhere that he's been, at Florida State, at Georgia, at Alabama. I mean, he's really shown that he can be a good player developer. that he really connects with his players. When he came to Tennessee, his former players, a lot of them just spoke so highly of him. And I think that's huge. And so that's a good sign. But that's just what we have to see. Can he take these players who have been squandering under Butch Jones, make them better, and can he take these new players to where they need to go, and to play at an SEC level? That's everything. And it's not just Jeremy Pruitt. It comes down to a guy like Tyson Helton. This offense was awful last year. I mean, just absolutely abysmal. What is Tyson Helton going to do? What new can he bring to this? Obviously, we know the formations are going to be new. He's going to be more pro style and change things up in that way. But in terms of moving a guy like Jarrett Guarantano along, what is he going to do there and bring to the table that Butch Jones couldn't? There's a ton of questions, but also I think right now a ton of hope, because we haven't seen them coach it down a football, but that's a bad and a good thing. Like, they could be awesome or they could be terrible. We'll see. I don't think they're going to be terrible. There's a lot of signs out there that the staff really knows what they're doing. But I guess September 4th or 5th or whenever that first game is against West Virginia, we're going to see. It's all going to be out there on display because West Virginia is really, really good. And we're going to see how real these coaches are.
You mentioned Jonathan Kongbo when you talked about development. I think he's one of the players that Tennessee fans were a little bit disappointed in his time in Knoxville. Jonathan Kongbo, Khalil McKenzie. So you talked about development. What about the change in team mentality? I'm sure it's changed. Over 30 players transferred in the Butch Jones era. What can you tell us, being in Knoxville, about the change in the team mentality? How different is it?
Coming from the coaches, it's absolutely massive, and it seems like we haven't gotten to talk to the players much, but the players that we have gotten to talk to, it seems like it's getting drilled into them. Like, these coaches are having to do everything that they can to get these kids on the same page with the coaches, because the coaches' mentality is just the complete flip side of Butch Jones and his staff. I mean, these guys are in it to win it. They want you focused at all times and be present and ready to play football at the highest level always. And it just seemed like with Butch, it was kind of more of a pie in the sky mentality. It's hard to exactly explain, but I mean, it's just a lot more hard nosed, I guess, is the right way to put it with Jeremy Pruitt. Like I said, I mean, the guy just eats, sleeps, drinks, lives everything football, and he never really shuts it off, it seems. And this team did not have that kind of focus, not anything even close to that. I mean, you look back at some of the stuff from last year, like during the season opening game, your two quarterbacks weren't talking to each other because there was some kind of feud going on. Like, you got to cut that crap out. I mean, that's absolutely absurd and shouldn't happen with even the most incompetent coach. But somehow Butch pulled that off. And I think just changing all of that, those kind of mentalities, and getting these guys to be a team and to want to play for each other. Don't play for the coach, play for each other, play for the school, play for your pride, and things like that, rather than thinking about your individual performance. What I want, like Butch engendered a lot of that kind of pettiness where, a guy like a Jalen Hurd, I don't necessarily fault him because Butch really helped him get this mentality. Like, he was promised things by Butch Jones that Butch Jones never came through on. And then Jalen eventually said, well, I'm not getting anything out of this that you said I would, so I'm out of here. And I think Jeremy Pruitt's not going to make promises like that. He's going to say, you got to earn your position. You got to show me that you can be the guy that I need you to be. And that's totally different. And I think it's going to make a giant difference with this team, at least it should. And ideally, this team's going to come out tougher, more focused, and just better in general in that way. But I mean, just like with the coaching staff, like I was saying before, it all comes down to that first day in September. We'll see how much they've changed. I'm excited because I think, like I said, all of the signs with this coaching staff point towards something good, and I hope it really does pay off.
It does seem that Vol Nation's excited for this change, a refreshing change of season there in Knoxville. You talked about Jalen Hurd. I think in retrospect, you got to look back at that South Carolina game and Hurd's transfer, and you got to think that's the beginning of the end. To have a player who's just a few yards shy of taking the school's all-time rushing record. This is a top 10 historic program with a lot of quality running backs, and he's just shy of taking the school's all-time rushing record, and he transfers out. That had to be, the star cluster that said the Butch Jones era was quickly going to come to an end. Great point there. Last thing on this topic, Charlie, 6.5 is the number. Vegas has Tennessee at 6.5 wins over under, and Vegas has Tennessee as it opens as a 6.5 point underdog to West Virginia on Monday, September 3rd in Charlotte. What do you think? Give me your thoughts on the 6.5 point spread for Tennessee, West Virginia, and then tell me if you're going over under 6.5 wins for the season.
I've been thinking about this a lot, considering what we've been talking about, where, you have a lot of positive momentum with the staff right now. You have things like grad transfers coming in that could make a big difference. I think something that a lot of people aren't talking about with this team is that Butch Jones put talent on this team and talented players. I mean, you're talking on that defensive front. There's 3 5-stars in Shai Tuttle. Kyle Phillips was a high rated 5-star. And then Jonathan Kongbo was a 5-star coming out of JUCO. I mean, you got serious talent, at least by the evaluator standards, by 24/7 sports standards. There is truly talent on this roster. It was just totally mishandled and just misguided. And so there is potential that this team could be decent. I'm not going to say they're going to be good. I'm not going to say they're even going to smell an Eastern championship. But I think 6.5 is actually a fair number, because I saw some people saying like, whoa, 6.5. I think we're talking 5 wins. Tennessee wants to be avoiding, a 4-win season this year. That should be the goal. And I don't know. I think 6.5 is fair. Obviously, a bowl game, that's your baseline. Make a bowl game, and I think at this point, that's where you want to be minimum for this coming season. But I would say 7 wins ultimately is actually realistic. You have some games on here. I think Florida is going to be a toss-up. South Carolina will probably be a toss-up. That's tough. It's at South Carolina, but still. But very, very winnable. Kentucky, Missouri at home, and Vanderbilt, all winnable. And, you throw all of that together. I say they win 6 games. That's definitely my prediction for right now. I don't think you're going to beat Georgia. You're not going to beat Alabama. You're probably not going to beat Auburn at Auburn. Likely not going to beat West Virginia. But I would go with the under at this point with what I've seen. Maybe my thoughts will change come fall practice when we see all of these new guys come in. But for right now, I think this team might be a little bit better than some people are thinking, but a little bit better than some people are thinking right now is like 6 wins. I think that but that would be a success. That would be a good jumping off point for Jeremy Pruitt. And right now, that's my prediction for this team, I think.
I'm going to have to go with you, Charlie. I'd go with the under. I think 5 or 6 wins. I think the guys coming in, they're coming in the summer. It's going to be hard to gel and really get that team chemistry and the timing down before they play West Virginia. I think 6.5 was generous for Tennessee on the West Virginia spread. But I think 6.5. I would go with the under. I think you hit it right on the head. The Kentucky and Missouri games, I think, are going to be the difference between the over under on 6.5. South Carolina's got Bentley coming back, going to be a good quarterback, and I think they're going to be much healthier than last year. Kentucky loses quite a bit. Missouri's got a ton of talent on that team, but they also have Derek Dooley as offensive coordinator. So I think that might play against Missouri. So I'm with you. I would go with the under. Hey, Charlie, tell us what you got going on there in Knoxville. Tell us about the Orange and White Report real quick.
So I run a website called Orange and White Report that's just daily coverage of Tennessee, fully credentialed. We're at every event, and so we're coverage from up close. I'm not just a blogger on the internet. And then also I co-host the Swain event, which is morning radio, 7 to 10 a.m. here in Knoxville. Every morning, and the host is Jason Swain, former wide receiver for Tennessee, number 6 wide receiver all time at UT. And actually, on top of that, I guess I'll plug this, because this has been the funnest, coolest thing we've been doing lately is actually a subscription service called Swain Event Plus, where the biggest draw here is we've been doing interviews with former players where Jason just goes, he knows these guys really well, on a personal level, on a friend level, not just as a teammate. and they've been going really, really in depth with these interviews and not talking about Tennessee football currently. We're not talking about Jeremy Pruitt. Like we this past week went really in depth with Jonathan Crompton, who was the quarterback in 2008 when Philip Fulmer got fired, and Jonathan Crompton took so much heat that year, and he kind of went down the rabbit hole of what it was like. Like he got death threats from fans, and I mean it was a really bad situation for him, and he went deep into that and what that was like and how it kind of took him time to come back and feel okay with Tennessee again because he got kind of bitter. And these really meaningful conversations. It's been really cool. It's $3.98 a month that just, supporting our show. And I mean, we couldn't be more appreciative. It means the world to see anyone want to pay for that kind of content with us. And that's just been seriously an incredible thing. It's been going better than I ever thought that it really could. Not that I thought it would go badly, but it's been incredible. And so Swain Event Plus, that's swaineventplus.com. If you want to just hear these really cool interviews, that got one with Sterling Hinton and Fred White, and got, I guess I can't say it yet, but we got somebody good this week too. That's coming up. And so, yeah, so Swain Event, Orange and White Report, Swain Event Plus, that's my whole spiel. I probably went a little long there, but yeah, that's what I've been going on.
Hey, for my money, folks, the most honest and unfiltered information coming out of Knoxville. If you like the grassroots coverage stuff, check out the Orange and White Report, and definitely check out the Swain Event. And what he's got going on with the Unfiltered is tremendous stuff there with Jason Swain. Hey, Charlie, last thing before we let you go. Everyone knows about the disastrous offseason. One of the few things that fans were happy to see, however, was the emergence of Philip Fulmer as the athletic director. What's your take on how Fulmer's doing as the AD and the long-term potential that he has as the athletic director there in Knoxville?
I think he's been great so far. He is the calming presence at Tennessee right now, because everything is kind of up in the air with all over the school. They just fired the chancellor. They're fully replacing the board of trustees, and like there are giant shakeups coming up. The president is about to be replaced. The president of the university is about to be replaced. And I mean, it's just everything is flipping over on its head right now. And so fans are a little antsy about it. And it's Fulmer is just this sort of rock that they have right now to look at, this beacon in the night, where I've said it from the beginning, it feels like sitting on your grandfather's lap. Like that, it's just a really comforting presence. And it's been nice in that way. As an actual athletic director, I don't think that he's necessarily made any kind of missteps so far. I think Jeremy Pruitt was a very, very competent hire that it really seemed like he made with his head and not his heart. Otherwise, he's only hired a volleyball coach otherwise. So it's not a ton to go off of so far, but he's handled some comments about like the renovations around Tennessee. He emphasized they're going to do renovations for the baseball team, which is huge. The baseball team has needed renovations for a decade now, honestly. I think he's done some good things there, but it's honestly, it's going to be hard for him to fall into the bad side of the fans right now, because he just is this light that everyone is looking at. But I think genuinely, even past, he kind of has some runway because of who he is. Even past that, I think he has done a good job, and done really well embracing that role, because it's a big thing. I mean, he's older; he's 70-something, and stepped into this genuinely not really expecting to do that. It seems, and I think he's been good. So I hope it continues down that path. We'll see what happens soon enough.
Yeah, Charlie mentioned the upheaval in the program there in the state. If you ever want to really get into state politics and just the disastrous effect it has and the connection it has with athletic programs, I wrote some stuff on the Rocky Top Revolt. I know Charlie's got Selena Summers there at the orangeandwhitereport.com that did a lot of that stuff and still is tracking the political maneuvering in the state that has to do with the university and will ultimately have to do with the athletic program. For those that don't know, the governor of Tennessee is the brother of the owner of the Browns, who I think have won one game in their last 36 games or something like that. And he's a potential candidate to be that new president that Charlie talks about. So if you're interested in just reading just a fiasco of state politics and university administration, kind of dig into the orangeandwhitereport.com and lastwordoncollegefootball.com. There's plenty of there for you. Charlie, last question on Fulmer. Will this adversity that you talk about, this turmoil, is that going to affect him at all? Or the people coming in going to be pro-Fulmer or anti-Fulmer?
I don't think he's going to end up being touched because, for one, I mean, he will have to do something to set himself up to get poached. I'll put it that way. Like, they can't just arbitrarily strike him down. Like, Beverly Davenport had some stuff that you could look at and say, all right, you had some justification there. A lot of people liked her, but she had done, like, her public persona was not good. That is 100% true. She did not handle herself well in public, and there were factors like that, despite the fact that a lot of students and fans liked her. But Phil Fulmer will have to make a misstep, and the onus is on him in some part to not do that. But I'm actually of the belief I don't think that Haslam becomes the president of the university, Bill. I think he sort of actually feels the tide and the way that it's turned and might actually want to avoid that. And I've just seen where I don't know, his interest might not be as high as some people think, in terms of, a lot of people think he wants to come in and create this coup where the Haslams just take over the school. I don't see that happening, but Lord knows I didn't think they were going to try to hire Greg Schiano. So the incompetency of this school knows no bounds. So Lord knows he may be the president in like 3 months, but either way, I don't see it happening at the moment. And because of that, I genuinely think, and I don't know how they couldn't be, I think the administration has to be scared at this point in some part. They have to be scared of the fans because the fans have said, oh, we're not taking this anymore. We're not just going to lay down while you take a crap on us. And they've showed that there's going to be FOIA requests, and we're going to watch very closely what you do and not just sit here and let you work behind closed doors the way you have for the last 15 years and just make all these terrible, terrible decisions. And so I think that they probably are walking on eggshells in some part. And so I would say Fulmer is in a protected class at the moment, but don't count it out. If he gives them a reason, maybe. But I would say at the very least, he has to do something. He has to slip up in some way to give them an opening in the door. But until then, I don't see him being touched. There would be a giant revolt, I think.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff, Charlie. And if the fans, you will have to have you back on sometime to rehash the Greg Schiano fiasco and the Rocky Top revolt. And
please do.
For the fans out there nationally who don't know, that's still going on. The disastrous offseason is still going on, and it's even crept into the state politics at the highest levels. So we'll have to have you back on. We'll talk about that in depth at some point. Charlie, tell us again real quick. It's been a pleasure having you on Mark Rogers TV. Tell the viewers again where they can find you at.
orangeandwhitereport.com, Swain Event. You can live stream the show 7 to 10 a.m. SwainEvent.com. And well, I guess we're going to be back on radio in about 2 weeks, but I actually can't say the deal's not completely done yet, so I can't say. I want to be able to say because I know all of the details. But
breaking news on Mark Rogers TV.
Yeah, we're going to be on the radio. I just can't say everything about it quite yet. But SwainEvent.com there. Swain Event Plus is the great in-depth interviews that I was talking about. And also part of Swain Event Plus, I didn't say this either, we have a podcast with John Bryce, if you know John Bryce, longtime reporter around Tennessee. He knows everything inside and out around Tennessee. That's part of that too. And then I'm at Charlie_Burris on Twitter. I think that pretty much covers it. That's my stuff.
Thanks again, Charlie. We appreciate your insight and your time. This wraps up this edition of Mark Rogers TV. Do not forget to hit that subscribe button so that you can hear voices just like Charlie and other contributors around the nation all year long. For Mark Rogers TV, I'm Mike Lovell of lastwordoncollegefootball.com. We'll see you again next time. Good night.